found this event on Eventbrite this morning, and I live about half an hour away, and thought, what a lovely day, and a guided walk with art as well, fantastic, ticks all the boxes, so here I am, just completely impromptu, so nice to meet you all.
And you.
So this is part of our 2-year programme of exhibitions and events across Northamptonshire, and our title is Xylophobia. So I think I've asked everybody else already if they know what that word means. Had any?
Well, is it the fear of wooden objects?
Well, it is,
or
yeah.
wood?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, I saw something on there.
So I guess technically also xylophones, but it's wooden objects and related fears.
Right.
So it could be like going to the woods, or in this case, I think some people have a bit of a phobia about contemporary art as well.
Understand.
Just when we had a little chat before, you said about wanting to walk, but maybe have a bit of not be on your own. So that was really
as a woman, I think a lot of women sometimes feel that they'd love to go out rambling. You know, we've got so many wonderful places, but personally for me, you know, I prefer to have company just because you see so many things on the TV, don't you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wish I was brave enough, and but I would prefer guided walks, so something like this.
Thanks for coming. That's maybe a segue into. So we invited Angela to be the guest curator and come up with. So under the umbrella of Xylophobia, there's lots of different possibilities. I asked Angela to come up with a kind of a vision and some artists. And I really liked your feel the fear and do it anyway. So if it's safe, anything like that.
The idea was, one of the objectives from the park's point of view was to try and extend the season when this park is busy, because it's very, very well used in the summer, but not so much in the winter. And so immediately there sort of needed to be a balance, because you can get really angsty art that might put people off. So there was a sort of a bit of a balance between work that would draw people in and work that would be about those anxieties. And so, you know, it seemed like just wanting, you know, like objects that are, you can address something through its opposite. So maybe you can address phobias through wonder or you know, other kinds of things. So I think all of the work, well, I think a lot of the work has quite an edge, but I hope it's also work that draws you in rather than sort of provoking anxiety. Yeah.
So at whatever point in time, Angela sent me some ideas for titles for the exhibition. And my favourite was Treewilder, because I think it sounds a little bit like rewilding us. Also Bewilder, so the idea that it's a little bit what's that all about.
Yeah, I think of it as Treewilder.
Yeah?
Yeah, but both are fine. Yeah.
Also I should say that it was it's been really great working here with the park rangers. So they've been involved. So Angela came up with a long list of artists, and we shared them with the rangers, and they were so positive actually. They didn't really help whittle it down, because I like near enough everything. They've been really good. So we are going outside in a bit. Starting here, and there's some I think it seems to be a lot of people when they come here, especially if they've never been to the park before. This is the first port of call anyway, so we come in here. Yasmin, did it look similar to when you were last here?
There was a lot of things in the middle.
Right.
And so you had to manoeuvre your way around them.
Well, there's a lot of things here, and there's a lot of, I think it'll be interesting when we go around, there's a lot of things outside as well, before we even added any artwork. And that's been really interesting to sort of work with, because my temptation was in this room to take everything out, paint it all white, make it look like a conventional gallery space, but that's not the point. And also if people came in and felt like that, I reckon they might take a step back out, whereas it's quite homely, it's full of stuff. I find that really difficult trying to make sense of the space because it's really busy. So try to work with that rather than against it, and that's the same when we go round. So first work, my point is actually up here. Yeah. So these are by Denise de Cordova. Does anyone want to guess what they are? My son knows one of them and he's 5, so no pressure.
Thrush.
Yep.
Goldfinch.
Yep.
Pigeon.
Pigeon? No.
Chaffinch.
Chaffinch would be.
I was quite pleased with this one because the ranger asked me as well. So it's a bit more unusual. It's called a Wheatear. I've never heard of it. Yeah. Goldfinches, I know you get them here. Because my son was obsessed with finding them because he likes them because they've got red faces and look like Darth Maul. So I already knew they were here. So when we looked, Denise has had a selection. We decided on 3. It was kind of which ones we're going to go with. Goldfinch was definitely in, but I liked Wheatear because it was. I didn't know what it was.
What are they made of?
Denise is quite kind of guarded about telling people what things are made of.
Right.
And no, I think she just thinks that they're made of magic.
Yes.
They look like.
And there's quite a long list of quite different lots. You know, I'm guessing, and there'll be like some sort of frame underneath, and then various of the materials you can get now. But
it looks like wood carvings,
but it does.
But
some of it's metal.
Could be like puppy magic type.
Yeah, but
couldn't it?
But it's moulded rather than carved in this instance, I believe.
So when they actually Denise sent them by courier to my house. That was the easiest way to do it, and they arrived, and my son, I keep on Noah, because I probably refer to him a lot today, was intrigued. What is it? Is it more Lego? They're wrapped in bubble wrap, and he was quite interested in what they were. So we unwrapped them, and I think it's really interesting thinking of Xylophobia. He was a bit scared of them because of their beak and the scale of them. And as a sculptor, I think that's just Denise is really interested in how she uses scale, and the other work was the outside of hers. How that uses scale. How big is that work that you've bought?
It's about that.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. She actually, I don't know if this is interesting in the context of this, but she's made the figure with its own little stand, sort of integral to the sculpture, like a the sort of box you might make to display sculpture. It's sort of all built in, so you just stand it wherever you want to stand it, which is rather nice. But again, it's using that kind of mouldy kind of look.
I think she always seems to pick a scale to work on that's quite uncanny, because as soon when I know there's a bit in Jung where he talks about how when you're dealing with shifts in scale, like for example stories with giants or fairies, you know you're dealing with the unconscious. So I think she's it's slightly I think there's in many ways they resemble the bird very closely, but then the scale just makes it shift somehow, so that maybe our relationship changes, or
because this figure is a complete figure, but it's too small.
Yeah.
So it's a girl, but it's only this big.
But it's not doll size, it's not mannequin size, it's not ornament size, it's somewhere else. It's very particular, I think. Yeah.
That's really interesting, because it is really interesting to me anyway, because when I drive into Leicester, there are these figures that are about that high outside a school. And I think they're probably there to make you as a driver aware that there are young children around. But they freak me out. And it's the scale, I've never thought of that before, but it's the size of them, they're just wrong. It's a wrong size. And that's so interesting, it really... it affects like the inside.
Interesting.
Fascinating, just by scale.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we stood this on the mantelpiece, which is sort of all wrong, but it sort of charges the whole room in a very strange way, actually. So I'm still absorbing that. It's only been there a couple of days. I go back into the room and think, it's somehow completely transformed by this, as you say, the scale is strange.
Because you've got the birds sort of real size there at one end of the room, and you've got this other size. I mean, it's a simple thing to do, but it is. It's interesting that it prompts response.
So about that edge, I think that's got it, because I mean they went so well up there. Thanks to Andy for making the shelves.
Shelves are perfect.
All the images and birds and things, you could almost imagine they've been here already. But I think that's the thing that's not quite right, is why are they so big? But I also like the fact that obviously we're trying to encourage people to go out into the woods, and the wildlife, the birds are inside, so I think of it as a bit like Daphne du Maurier's The Birds. Maybe a bit scary. This is the beginning, so it's kind of looped halfway.
Out of the wood, not of the wood, out of the yet, not yet, out of the wood. Out of the
should have warned you that there was mild language. A member of the public made a comment about that. So I'll refer back to that later because I've been talking to who this person might be. I think maybe like Mary Whitehouse has been to see the exhibition, somebody that's easily offended. So I'll come back to that later with another work. I really liked this as soon as I saw it. And I think it fits perfectly with Xylophobia. As Jennet say, where the bat has been traditionally associated with fear of the woods, the potent image has now become supercharged by the origin story of COVID-19. Along with the rest of the natural world, bat habitats are being destroyed at a terrifying rate. They've been around for 50 million years. They don't want anything to do with us, and this whole thing is not their fault. And if you recognise the phrase not yet out of the wood, it was something they kept saying, we're not out of the woods yet, we're not out of the woods yet, and I thought I think it's really great, really like it. Do you want to say anything about Jennet maybe?
I think one thing that I think is quite interesting is that Jennet's been quite involved with the Extinction Rebellion movement, and so like this bat costume she's worn with a group of her friends wearing bat costumes and carrying those kinds of banners on Extinction Rebellion marches. So it's like there's this crossover, and Extinction Rebellion has been really characterised by quite creative ways to try and get people's attention and try and get inside people's thinking. And so yes, I mean, I guess that these epidemics seem, the source of them, and there are likely to be more of them, is because we are, as humans, are encroaching on territories that we haven't encroached before, and kind of disturbing different populations and putting them under stress and having that kind of contact. So it's quite a beautiful kind of lament for you know, it's like if you think in terms of xylophobia, like wildlife's got more reason to be fearful of us than of us to be fearful of wildlife. And she's actually carried that skeleton on these Extinction Rebellion marches too. Yeah. But it was very much like, it was a piece that was pre-made, it wasn't made for the show, and it just kind of like found its home to it. And she did literally like set up on a turntable the landscape that swerves around, and set up a, you know, one of those blue rooms where, you know, and it's very much a home animation job kind of thing.
Very creative, isn't it, to think that she did that during lockdown.
Yeah, because I was paralysed. I couldn't. Do you know what I mean? It was you know, you kind of you can it
Affected people in lots of different ways, didn't
Yeah.
it?
But it's interesting to see now what's been percolating from that situation.
I don't know if I told you after the comment about the mild language, the rangers really came to the defence of it, and I don't know, we'll put up it says contains mild language, that's our back's covered, but they said we've watched the Little Bat film, and we hope it makes people think. That was really good.
Okay. And there are at least 3 species of bat that live in this park.
Yeah. So when we came here with the artist stuff, and I picked up on that, she asked that question directly. Okay. This is my mum. I think everybody's already met. To introduce her work, it is a little poem that I've asked my mum to read.
This is one of my fears, speaking in front of people, so
Well done.
I don't mind doing it, but bear with, as they say. And I used to skip to this back in the days when James asked me yesterday would I read it. He said, could you read something? It said, my mother said, and then I went off into, well, I don't need to print it out, do I? I said, well, I can't remember it all and I won't skip, so I will read it. So it's called My Mother Said I Never Should, and it's a children's song. My mother said I never should play with the gypsies in the wood. If I did, she would say, naughty girl to disobey. Your hair shan't curl and your shoes shan't shine. You gypsy girl, you shan't be mine. And my father said that if I did, he'd rap my head with the teapot lid. My mother said that I never should play with the gypsies in the wood. The wood was dark, the grass was green. By came Sally with a tambourine. I went to sea, no ship to get across. I paid 10 shillings for a blind white horse. I upped upon his back and was off in a crack. Sally, tell my mother I shall never come back. I didn't know the rest of the verses, only the first one.
That's a very good skipping.
Really good. Cheek.
Well,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. See.
So, Dad. So this is my dad. So what I think you said the other day. So my mum did play with the gypsies in the wood. My dad's you're half Romany.
Half Romany, yeah.
I'm quarter Barny.
Well, I guess it's that same
Go
then.
then, yeah. Yeah.
So I just thought that was a nice segue into this work. Also, I showed my wife all the long-listed artists, and you know, you were saying about kind of as a woman not going out on your own. I find that I believe it. I find I can't understand it because I go out and I'd like to run in the woods on my own, and my wife won't, and I find it really hard to understand that. I know it's a real thing, and when she watched it, I loved this, and I didn't realise at the time the Romany connection, and there was like I don't know, some sort of unconscious connection to me that I liked it, but I showed my wife, and she said, I don't think you should show that because watching that makes me feel more scared to go into the woods. I don't think it's very scary, you'll see, make your own mind up. But she did qualify that with, but you're going to do it anyway, aren't you? So, there it is.
disappeared. Joe reckons it was the devil coming home. And Georgie went up that lane, Georgie and Bill, they took him up there. I saw how Barnwell used to be, they got that place up there where I was born, saw how Barnwell, yeah, we pick it out, would you? It's all the trees and things in it. Yeah.
So I've just showed you that it's not ideal watching it halfway through, but that's kind of how people have been experiencing it. They'll come in at whatever time it's on. I think it works okay. So you should see the beginning part.
I'm wondering if that's the white horse in that poem, because I didn't know the rest of the poem.
Did you not?
No.
Somebody killed up there on a horse, and the horse used to ride them through the lane. But one night up there, it was in the summertime, and it was just getting dusk, you know. And my mum said, I heard that baby crying, Bill, she said. Bill went up there, he went all through the cots and everywhere, and he couldn't see nothing. And then, when he got back...
So I think this is very... So, it wasn't too scary, was it?
No.
I don't know what I was talking about. That edge that you talked about is, for me, is the most sharpest. Just I really love it. I think it's quite like beautiful moments, but like that little dark passage through the woods. I think that's just kind of. And I like the way the sound. It's the same on headphones, and it pans across speakers, and it gets louder and quieter. So you sort of half hear stories, and then your imagination makes up the rest, which I think is what happens.
Yeah. This ghost is very much about people talking about it, because it's always, because it's always recounting. Well, I remember, I heard, and so it's such an integral part of the whole ghost thing, is the telling.
I think for me as well, it was that dark passage as well. It was that bit there, it was like the scary bit, because I can imagine myself thinking, I'll go out for a walk on my own, and then it getting a bit dark and being a bit like, oh, I don't really want to be, well, I probably wouldn't put myself in that situation, but, that's when you would get, your imagination would start thinking, or, playing, but running away with itself, and, that connection to ghosts and spirits, I think, was good, because the, woods are really ancient, aren't they? And I think, spirits, you think have been quite ancient, and there's that kind of correlation as well.
So it's interesting how ghosts belong to places.
Yeah.
And she's talking about they're talking about places in terms of the stories that they contain.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah. There's woods, I always feel there's a big history.
Yeah.
They've been there in the same that stories and ghosts, there's always a history to a place, isn't there?
Yeah.
I just quickly whizzed over the children's song again. It doesn't actually say why you shouldn't.
The what, sorry?
It doesn't say why you shouldn't play with gypsies in the wood. It just leaves it to just don't do it, and it's always imagine what that thing might be.
Yeah.
You end up with 3 children.
It's so strange. It's my auntie, who lived in the same house that she was born in, who was a gypsy herself, who is a gypsy herself. She was told not to play in the woods opposite her house because there were gypsies there, even though she is a gypsy, but it's like all gypsies there. And I went and walked my dog in those woods, and she'd never been there, and she's 94, and she'd always done what her mum had told her.
Well, we all want children like that, don't we?
But it's interesting, this edge of woodland that this film represents, and those edges of woodland which gypsies are very, very strongly associated with.
We live on the edge of Kingswood. So
Ah.
Kingswood is there, and then
Yes.
there's a road, and we live on an estate that was built on, like all the land down on Kingswood, where when I was a young girl growing up, gypsies were there, and we never went. We didn't
Oh,
ever go.
really?
You know, it's like, no, you know, the gypsies up there, don't go anywhere near them. And then, of course, you know, John went to the fair and hooked a duck, and, you know, used to get, didn't we, free candy floss, free go on the duck, free people would say, she hasn't done anything, and she's got a, whatever it was, because, you know, it's family, auntie and uncles and things like that. And then, funnily enough, we've ended up living in a house on, you know, where the gypsies were, so it's quite a connection.
I think there's lots of like Gypsy Hill and Gypsy Lane, those kinds of
Yeah.
place names. Yeah. There's a big Gypsy influence, particularly in working class culture, I think, that is really under-acknowledged and interesting.
My daughter was going to call her second child Romany because of the family connection.
Yeah.
And when she was born, she rang to say, I've had her. And I said, oh, welcome to the world, Romany. She said, oh, we haven't called her Romany. I said, oh, she said, no, right at the last minute, I daren't do it because even though we love the name, we didn't want her to be teased. I know, I said, that's really sad.
Yeah.
We called her Talia and, you know, whatever, so. But yeah, that was going to call her Romany. She might get teased at school, and it's sad sort of state of affairs, that that's how people think that way, don't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we were going to considering showing this in one of the shelters, wildlife shelters in the wood, and partly I like the idea of this before you go out to the wood. It kind of like are you going to go or not? That just kind of raises the level a little bit. But also with the fireside, these chairs and things here. This is like the most sort of people do come in here and sit around and chat to each other. So I like the idea that it's sort of almost sitting around the fireplace listening to the stories before they go out. So. Okay, quick one, and then we can go to the woods if you feel up for it. I don't know if you've noticed this one here. It's sort of morphs into the space and kind of, I keep forgetting this one's here. So I'm not going to say too much about it because there's more of these works, or similar works, scattered throughout the park. But this is by Kim Pace. It's called Brock. And it was only yesterday that I figured out what
The badger.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I never heard of that before, but apparently it's Old English for badger.
Yeah.
News to me. And with these works, there's 5 of them, I think. I like some more than others, and I think it's how ambiguous they are. So, not knowing what Brock meant, I didn't have any frame of reference for that. And it's not a badger, but it's not a badger. It's kind of badgeresque. And I think, I mean, do you want to say anything about Kim?
I was just going to say, I like unexpected connections. Like you've got the gold crest that's in Denise's sculpture, and the gold crest is in the film, and gold crest and wagtails, the 2 gypsy birds, and they're tied up with lots of superstitions and so forth. And I just like how you've put a really ghosty piece next to the ghost story video. It's all I was going to say, and one that's a dissolving, a sort of watery ghost, given
that's how I saw it, like the badger.
you know, it's such a watery park, isn't it? It sort of feels quite right for him. But yeah.
It's better actually, it's quite cold, so it's harder than it has been. I've been getting to sink into it.
Yeah.
So this is the Winter Watcher. And then, so again, this was couriered to me. So this one was on the kitchen table for a couple of weeks. And the postman thought it was like an elaborate Halloween, because it was lying on her back, wrapped in a blanket and then bubble wrap, and it looked like his legs poking out, like we're getting rid of a body or something. Funnily enough, Noah wasn't frightened by this one. It was The birds.
The birds.
Yeah, it's past the dog bark test. So people have been here because some people just miss it. I mean, I should say when Denise didn't choose this tree when she made the sculpture, and we had another idea in mind and tried it and it didn't quite work. It fitted so well on this branch that we put it on, went and put all the other work up, and then came back and screwed it in because it fits so well. You probably didn't really need to be screwed in. And I think it's perfect location, kind of looking out, possibly down that path. There's the kind of kids play area there, and when we walked back round, the sun was just going down. I thought someone's up our tree, and it was a sculpture.
Tree.
Actually, I can show you. It's got, so we brought some of the excluded children that we work with here, and I love this. I sent this to Denise. That's one of the boys who climbed up to mirror the
To
pose.
have a look at it.
Yeah, they're really intrigued by it.
Good.
So did you want to say anything about Denise?
Just because my mind ticks away quite slowly, I just thought it was quite interesting that there's an association of birds with death, and particularly like if a bird comes indoors, it's a sign that somebody's going to die. And I perhaps that's part of where the reaction to the birds, particularly, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's supposed to be why people have phobias about them, because most phobias in the end are a fear of dying, because that's our biggest ultimate fear, isn't it? So it's just with Denise. Again, she's chosen this scale that is an in-between scale, because she's an adult woman but she's child size, and so you've got that shifting around and this evocation of the unconscious, really. And Denise I thought of in terms of this project because she sort of had quite a lot of changes in her life and needed to sort of press the reset button or recalibrate in a kind of major way to sort of find herself again, and she did this. She was in quite a difficult situation, and she did this by taking herself off to the wilderness, and she found that in Canada. She went to, because we don't really have wilderness in the UK anymore, so it took her to Canada, and she went on, she sort of was, like many women, perhaps nervous of that whole thing, but she did it anyway, and she ventured on these huge treks into the wilderness on her own, and so, I mean, it's not immediately there in the work, but it informs it at some level. So she's done, she's done these figures of sort of. If you look on her, she's got a great Instagram page, but she's done quite a lot of figures of sort of like women stridently setting forth, women of a certain age, and it borrows from that kind of edge about it being. I mean, I'm massively comfortable outdoors on my own, actually. So I kind of have to almost visit this, and I like sleeping in places that are remote on my own and all this kind of thing, because I actually feel safer than in the city. So this is all borrowed from me in a way. But here you've got, it's great, she's wearing a skirt. She's sort of, do you know what I mean? She's sort of she's inhabiting the female person.
It's not as tomboyish, is it?
She's not
kind
tomboyish.
of feminine still.
She's not, no.
It's got this. I mean, it's solid, and again, it's made of things. I don't know. I don't know if Denise could actually recount it, even if she wanted to.
She's secretive about it. Yeah,
but
she
it's
doesn't want
hard.
to. Yeah.
But the way the skirt
Doesn't look hard, does it?
It just, it just fits that branch perfectly.
What are the hoops?
They are, because she thought they might be needed to secure her to the tree, but it wasn't necessary, but also for birds to perch, for bird perches. I don't know if you've seen any birds perching.
I haven't actually, just children. So.
Also, you could attach ropes, but to secure.
Yeah, I mean, when she came, it did actually come with a rope, and we were going to tie it on. It was a black rope that particularly considered, it wasn't just any of it, this was part of the work. And we didn't need it because it fitted, but it didn't look, we put it on it, it didn't
Need it.
Yeah, and I think it would have changed it and wouldn't have looked as like it belonged there as much.
It does she's sat there really happily, isn't she? Having a good old look at what's going on in the park.
So this one was, so we've made the Oundle Chatter Facebook page, which is mostly just people moaning.
Yeah.
But this has been really positive. So does anyone know what this is all about? They quite like it. And they said they're walking their dog and the dog barked because there was somebody at the tree or something enough to set a dog off. And I think that's a good test for how realistic it is. But maybe it was a bit uncanny for the dog as well. But it's been really positive. And I think it's placement as well with the play area there, because of the scale. Is it child size? Is it outside? It's just not quite either.
I'm interested in how it's monochrome, because and with all this kind of surrounded by, she hasn't worked that much recently out of doors, and so she's surrounded by actual real colour rather than manufactured colour. And if there's a difference, I don't know. I sound like I know what I mean, but I know what I'm talking about. But so it's a manufactured black and white colour within this nature colour, and she's almost like her own shadow or something, because she's an absence of colour. And again, the shadow takes you into Jung's ideas. Anyway,
it keeps coming up.
Fanny, for your thoughts. Oh, but I could read something she wrote, which I thought was lovely. Denise de Cordova describes falling and tumbling into love with the forest as almost shocking. Okay. This is quoting her. A deep phenomenological attachment to place that has become embodied and umbilical, a kind of longing to become part of the deep inside of the forest rather than experiencing a view from afar. Part of the attraction for the artist is fear and the uncanny, how surveillance by non-human eyes, okay, I mean that's another element that, I mean, you know, we're probably geared to be anxious about wolves because actually by rights, there should be wolves.
I had
here,
a real wolf phobia when I was
That's really weird.
By rights, there should be wolves here, and there should be less of us. You doubt yourself to the core, in a way, or is it like horror vacui, the terror of the empty page? Anyway.
It's a rubbish title, but it's called How to Be an Artist by a writer called Michael Atterbath. And it starts off about how to address the right page. And it says the only way to start is to start. I think the same as going out. So the only way to get over it is to go out.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. You wrote that book some years ago, wasn't it?
But you could also think about the companion of making as needing a companion when you're outdoors, because that's how you can lose fear as well, isn't it? Is when you're with somebody else and then your fear goes. So for her, it's like her practice is her companion. Well, that's just how I read it, which is really, it's a lovely thought, that.
Or you take your own wolf, don't you? Because you have your dog with you. You know?
There was that guy who reckoned he was friends with the bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew I was right not to laugh.
That's the shortest story I can think of with a bad ending, you know. One
It's a
sentence.
good film. It's called Grizzly Man by it's
Oh,
it
Werner
happened.
Herzog,
Yeah,
is it?
it happened. It's a real guy
It's
went
a
out
real
into the wilderness and decided that he was going to befriend bears and film. And for ages, it's like, wow, he got really close. And there's like a shot in it where he's sitting reading a book about bears. And it's one behind him, and it's like, don't read the book, turn around. And yeah, it doesn't end well. You can probably imagine. But they recovered the footage and the film. It's a sort of edited documentary film, and the way they deal with what happens is quite respectful. But again, it doesn't show you anything. It shows you Werner Herzog watching the recovered footage, which is probably this guy being eaten and ripped apart. But again, it like leaves the imagination to do the work. It's a good film though.
Yes. I can imagine Herzog, when he found that material, he thought, I really want to do something with this.
I like the idea of the birds sitting. I don't like the idea of the sort of horses, but the birds sitting.
You didn't like the idea of the what?
The horses, you know, the
yeah.
ropes. But the birds is a nice idea, partly I suppose because she's becoming assimilated at that point. And they become her familiars, you know, so.
She has got a little bit of bird poo on her now.
Yeah.
So she would eventually change colour, wouldn't she, and shape. Which suggests they're quite relaxed up above her.
Doing what they do.
So there's definitely a connection for me with this and the work inside. So the birds are inside and the humans outside. But it's not completely human and they're perhaps not completely bird. There's like a little bit of crossover.
I just quite like it, you know, you're saying about the monochrome, but it's kind of she's subtly sitting there and to be noticed, you know, and the dogs are noticing something slightly different, but, you know, perhaps it takes, you know, humans who are busy thinking about this, that and the other as they go for a walk a little bit longer to notice her, and then that slight eerie connection with ghosts and did I see that, or, you know, was I imagining it, or and glancing back kind of thing. And yeah, I find that connection with Xylophobia.
I find it the scale issue interesting because it's not a human-sized woman. It's a child, and when you're trying to hide, you try to make yourself as small as possible. So I see that as being the grown woman who's scared of what's out there, trying to make herself small and blend in while she looks to see what happens. Is it safe to go out there? Is it?
Maybe you climb a tree when you're frightened.
Well, you need height to stay away from the predators on the ground.
It'd be very different with the leaf on the tree.
Yeah. That's been because we installed in October and it was quite a late sort of leaf stage for a while, and then all of a sudden it's the same for some of the others we've seen in a little while actually. They were, I think, more subtle, and now they're a little bit more. There's no leaves on the tree. It's just the tree.
She's more vulnerable, isn't she, without the leaves? She's much more exposed.
Yeah. So it's really easy to talk about as a person, isn't it?
Yeah.
She doesn't think of them as birds and people. She thinks of them as landscapes. And she's quite troubled. You know, she can... But I don't... You know, she's quite troubled when they're talked about as animals, creatures and people. But I don't know where... You know, it's important to her that she thinks of them as landscapes, but I mean, I'm really simplifying stuff that she's talked about.
Noticed it as we came through.
Oh no, it's much better than when it's grey. Done.
Did you spot this one as you walked along and see it?
I did, yeah.
So you couldn't see it in the end of October because all the leaves on these trees, you couldn't see it. So it's quite nice. People do come in here and sit out and look out and see a view, and it's quite nice that little window sort of frames it. So when we installed it, we came back round just to kind of step back and see how it looked. And a nuthatch came and flew down and landed on the tree, almost the same colour, sort of bluish, and sort of did a circuit of it, or sort of saying, "What's this then?" or "Are you my mum?" or something. And then when we came back to photograph the work, it was back again. So we've got a really good shot of the bird and the whatever that is. Did you the bird head? Did you call it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I
That
mean,
one looks more like a bird.
Do you think?
Yeah.
This is
Little-
really interesting
little
because
beak.
for ages I didn't even spot that. I just thought it was like a bit of yellow. I didn't place it as a beak, and I think it is. But yeah, yeah.
Oh, there's a robin now.
There's a brown bed actually. That's quite strange.
Oh, right, okay.
Did you want to say anything about Kim?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's great, isn't it? It's brilliant, yeah. Oh, that little robin.
That's almost like sort of mending them, like was it Snow White, the
With
birds
the,
come out to her.
yeah.
Oh.
How nice.
With Kim, she sort of increasingly, her work is quite difficult to talk about, so I think it's always okay if you fumble around a little bit, but I think she's got lots of kind of like, references to masks and masquerade and popular culture in her work increasingly. I think increasingly like it's how but it's like how you shade, she's kind of shaded away from the human figure more and more and more, but how you can conjure a character, within this it's made of clay, just by because we're so keen to read faces into things, that she's almost toying with that tendency that we have to read, because we're programmed again, our sort of hard wiring is programmed to sort of be scanning for faces, and she's very, very interested in animism, which is basically, saying, it's like suggesting that rocks and mountains and trees and have souls, but then also because we have somehow got ourselves in a situation where we believe that only humans have souls, it's like suggesting that animals have souls. And so she's got various things in the mixture. She's very, very interested in theory, where I guess current theory is challenging the idea that science has this kind of supremacy in terms of interpreting the world, and that the things that we don't understand, science will eventually have an answer for. And I suppose even if it's just as a kind of catalyst, because in a way, if you're sort of seeking new imagery and new possibilities, you'll use different things as strategies, even if you have to sort of suspend your disbelief to use them. So in that sense, she's interested in animism, and this is something that she recommended I read, which touches on clairvoyance, and it's like the point is not to verify what magnetized clairvoyants see or to understand enigmatic healings, but to cultivate lucid trances
automatism in the milieu of art, with the ultimate aim of escaping the shackles of normal representational perception. The milieu of art would explore the means to recuperate our psychical force. So they are really, I think she creates extraordinarily charged objects, and they're kind of almost, that it's not through a kind of very involved, refined making process. It is just using the sort of way that the clay has dried out, or using like a silly sort of almost carrot nose to suggest something. And I think she works very she laughs quite a lot, and she works in that kind of way where she's dealing with this matter about what it's going to supply to her in terms of chances within it. I think the cover it's I was just so lucky because I contacted her and said, have you ever thought of showing. She did a lot of work about vegetables that were shading into becoming humans and vice versa, and they're very beautiful and creepy pieces. And I just and that was the latest body of work that I knew, and I just contacted her on a hunch about this project, and she said, funnily enough, I'm making sort of like sprite-like masks that I've been attaching to trees. So you sort of go, oh, that's an amazing coincidence, really.
You were saying about charged objects. So when we installed them, we walked around with them because they're quite lightweight, and sort of say down there and up there, just tried a few out. And when it was the right tree, it was so obvious, and it kind of added to the tree, and the tree added to the artwork as well. So there's some other ones where the branches almost become arms.
Yeah.
So the tree becomes a person.
So was her earlier work shown indoors?
Yes.
And so this was a new step for her
Yes.
to connect with the outdoors. And
Well, during the pandemic, she had started to fix her work to trees and take photographs of them and have a think about it. So it was just a weird coincidence.
It's interesting as well, because in tree trunks and stuff, the knots in the wood, you can often make little faces.
Yeah. Strange, because it's a really sort of hideous. It starts for me as a sort of really hideous, almost sci-fi forehead, and then it melts down into this rather, those kind of those sort of unseeing eyes, and then it melts so that it's just a rather silly beak, and then you've got this kind of rather believable sort of chin that brings it back so that it's not a bird anymore if you work down from the top to the bottom. And that's just within a, that's just like, the colour's quite interesting too. Quite interesting to go for a quite sunny blue.
Yeah.
It's quite dirty as well.
The day we installed it was lovely. It was really nice, and by the time the sun had started to go down, and there was this kind of golden light and all the trees we put the work up. But I thought the blue gave it a bit of distance, because you don't find that many blue things in nature. And then the nuthatch found it, and it was the same.
Yeah. But Kim contacted me just to say how brilliant the install had been, and how she'd really clicked with Denise and clicked with you, because artists can be quite worried at that point about how it's going to work out, and they just felt like the synergy was great to find the right. They mentioned you as well. Sorry, I mistook you for a park ranger, but Andy did a lot of the technicianing and the installation and everything, which lots of you know. But they it's like it's all important, taking the time, and it's about observing your surroundings and observing
and responding to when the artwork likes where it is.
Is it?
It is. It's the colours.
It looks glass, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's got. That's been since it's been outside.
Oh really?
Yeah.
A lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look, to me, that's like one of those funny things that you look through, and the more you look through it, the more you see. Because I just sort of looked, and it was there, and then the more you look at it, I'm thinking, oh, it's got eyes and that bit's the mouth, and the more you look at it, the more you can see a face.
Which is Noah's favourite.
Is it?
Yeah,
Is it?
It looks like Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
Zombie or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was another one. I thought when we put it on there in the kind of white of the tree.
See what you mean about the arms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I always come this way. I quite like it that it's on the other side
Back
of the
side
tree.
of it.
Although lots of people coming this way. I still might not clock it.
That's where labels always come in handy, isn't
Yeah,
it? That you see the label and think, oh,
What's going on?
yeah.
Where is it?
What's that about?
Exactly.
I wasn't
yeah.
sure about where to put them, so I don't want to put too close that it gets in the way. But
That blends, I think, quite well.
so it's
The
like,
silver birch.
yeah.
It blends
Not like
quite
you.
subtle, isn't it? I think it's quite subtly. So again, you could look at it and think, oh,
what do you see this one as?
well, I see more of a face with that, a
Yeah.
nose rather than a beak.
So this is, it's called Woodland Spirit, so that's quite ambiguous.
Right.
Yeah,
What's the
I'd
previous
get that.
one called?
Night Warbler.
Night Warbler.
So that's it's more suggestive. I think the titles play a part.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Warbler's kind of saying this is a bird, but, rather than a badger.
There are lots of those horrible, is it Green Man's
Yeah.
sculptures around, aren't there?
Yeah.
And with supposedly the spirits of the woods, and so I wonder if that's the green is coming from that, maybe, I don't know.
Looks,
Yeah, I've actually got a green one.
gives me a taste of what do you call them in Lord of the Rings? The trees.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the Ents.
End thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
The lakes are frozen.
No, they're really, aren't they? Really.
Have you got a picture of the sphere?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Wonderful.
Printed. It looks like texture of bark, doesn't it? You know, like as if you went like that, you'd feel.
First of all, I thought that was kind of like
Yeah.
Danny's interested in territories where people gather because there's nowhere else to go, where communities exist in a fragile state as a result of social exclusion. Often these places are overlooked and not perceived to have a positive function, yet human interaction and intervention act as a collective for those who are dislocated or marginalised. So he's kind of interested in sort of illicit uses of the woods, or like sort of ne'er-do-wells that might come here at night and get drunk or whatever. And so he spent a bit of time here and found these carvings on trees, kind of like, I should perhaps not do it, but it's kind of people sort of marking their territory, staking a claim to it. So these are all photographs. So these are all, there's some others around the park. There's 6 altogether. They're all photographs of trees in the park. And the technique is called photogrammetry. So you take lots of photographs and then use some software that stitches the photographs together to create a 3D object. So they did a really interesting thing. I think it was in Iraq. There was a sculpture that was blown up, and lots of people had photographs of it. And by using this process of like assimilating these 2D photographs, they managed to recreate a 3D model of the thing. So the same process for these trees, it's lots of different angles and then photographed, and then in the software he's chosen a view, So you could imagine these. You could rotate them in sort of 3D space. Chose a view that he liked, tidied it up a little bit, and then the background colour of these. It's from a pixel, so it's somewhere in this photographic image. That green is in there, so it sort of goes. So they're all subtly different. This one you can see a bit creased. Fortunately, last week we had a bit of vandalism here, so this one was found screwed up in the bushes. So I had to let Danny know, and he's been really brilliant about it. First we said, that's interesting, rather than oh no. I think the destruction of the work, though an act of vandalism, is a genuine response to being outside of something, and is a form of audience engagement with real authenticity. That was really nice attitude. I don't know who. We sort of preempted it. You know, we thought, are we endorsing? We thought we might get tagged throughout the length of the exhibition. They've been quite well respected, but maybe I don't know who Ellen and JP are. If only we came with somebody whose initials are JP, and he just got married, and not to Ellen. Don't know who that is. Maybe it was her that took it down, but so most of them, well, no, they're all a little bit different. So that was obviously his kind of initials, but I like this. This is a positive one. It's funny that this is the one that got taken down. This one was left alone. I don't understand the reason for doing it, but.
I like that one. I like the little smiley face.
I like the eye in the top of that, like a cyclops.
Yeah.
You know, looking at you. Yeah. So everybody sees something different, don't they, when they look at it? Or you'd look again and you'd see something else, wouldn't you?
Interesting enough, we work with excluded children. We brought them here to see the exhibition, and I thought they'd like this best because this is their world. And they're not that fussed about it, to be honest. They liked Denise's at the tree. They really liked that one. And it reminds me, do you remember with your show at East Carlton with flooded McDonald's? That's their domain. This is an artwork, a film featuring a replica McDonald's that was flooded. So kids will love that. They're not that fussed. In fact, they didn't like that because that's their territory that was being destroyed. And it's quite interesting. I come here with another curator who absolutely loves these. So this is the best stuff. Like, was really all over it. And I think it's because it's so far from her world. Yeah. It's like I think it needs to transport people a little bit, take them somewhere else. Whereas this is where the kids already are. They're like, it's adventure up a tree or something instead.
That's really interesting because these move me less.
Really?
Yeah. And so I think that's really interesting to say that we need to be taken somewhere where we're not.
Yeah.
And that perhaps they feel too familiar.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I do like these. I like them because they feel obviously a flavour of the woods, but there's something a little bit digital about them. I mean, the process is very digital, but you can see it in the image, like sort of edges, and it's a digital thing. But that is my domain, I guess. Do you want to say anything about Danny?
I just think it's all. Just switching away for a minute, I just think it's all credit because these were all run past the park rangers, and this is the side that the park rangers are trying to keep under control. You know, and I don't know if you'll be talking about the spear piece, but there's another piece, and it's kind of like it's the side of the. I mean, it's the side of the woods that we live opposite some woods, and I'm one of those people that goes around collecting tin cans that have been left there and the bits of rubbish. And when I talked to Danny about it, I started to feel like, oh my goodness, I'm sort of denying the reality and presence of of a group of people who are made invisible. Do you know what I mean? And I said, but it hasn't stopped me. But it is that kind of thing about wanting to erase their presence, or the traces that they leave of their presence are unwanted. So I was really well impressed that the park rangers said yes.
Yeah.
So I think he's made them kind of hyper real through that photographic technique. It's
So what do you think to this one then? What do you think? An owl?
Yeah, like your badge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
fungus.
Yeah. Okay. It's not a ban hour for them.
Right.
But I think that one's got arms as well. Can you see?
Yeah.
So it becomes a bit more of a person or a figure. So
it also looks to me quite natural, a bit like it could be, you know, an organic part of the tree, almost like a fungi or, you know, something like that.
Disease.
Compared to the blue mark.
A BAFTA?
Yeah, it does.
Looks like what?
A BAFTA award.
Oh, a BAFTA. Trust you.
Yes,
yeah.
This is Tilo's spot, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
So even sort of about bringing the dog.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if she barks,
Yes.
sees it, or
I'll let you know.
yeah.
I love it because of what you said, that it looks as if it could be real, but it isn't at the same time, and it's sort of moving between the two that every time you look at it. What were you saying? You were saying it looks as if, was it Joe said, it looks as if it might be real, but then again it might not be real, and that's what I love about it, that each time you look at it, you glance at it, 1 minute it does look like it's real and it has an expression, and next time you look at it, it looks like it's just this still stare.
You know, I think
and it's
all of these, to me, I've seen so far, have got in common. They all look like African tribal masks.
Yeah.
So this one's been donated to the park.
oh wow,
That's nice, isn't it?
so it will stay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, like masks because they're symmetrical.
There's one that's not, so we'll see.
No.
And one more Kim's.
The eyes are a bit scary.
It's
like you
bit deep set, aren't they?
Well, they're kind of like
really in.
sinkhole.
Yeah.
I like the way it's looking down the river. How did you attach it? Oh, sorry.
The fear factor, again, goes along with the tribal masks I've seen we've got, because they're all scary looking, as if they're all evil spirits. No, there's not a nice sort of smiley tribal mask I've ever seen.
I think your question about how it's attached, I think I'm going to take Denise's attitude to that and not tell you yet.
Willpower.
When we installed this, the light here was amazing. So it was just good, and that the tree was golden. We put it up, and it had to go there.
It looks more natural.
And I actually thought, oh, there's an owl in the tree. And I thought, well, no, that's the next one. And then you get it.
And then it looks more owl-like and then less owl-like.
Yeah.
But they do just have the sweet, don't they? They always give you but it's okay, it's Barnwell.
And I couldn't go in, like butterfly, where you're all sliding around and I fell out. I've been in it. No.
This is Danny Treacy, so I don't know if you saw the show before the past, there were 2 more of those.
It's got against the graffiti and the scratchings, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting, because
you know, whether that is why it got crumpled up, because it's almost like a subtle way of saying we know you're graffitiing on the, you know.
But I mean, the original graffiti is on the tree, and it's all here already.
Do you know where these trees are?
No, I've not gone looking for them.
Could take a while.
Yeah, I mean, Danny spent a whole day here. I think he probably got more photographs than the ones that we printed.
Did he know that's what he was going to do before he came here, and that he was then looking for that, or did he not know that he was
when
going
he first
to
came here? So all the artists came here. I think this is right. All the shortlisted artists came here. So they shortlisted, and I was thinking maybe we'll like colour few, and we didn't, because they're all really great. And something really interesting proposals always exist in work, and Danny's was not existing work, and then he came back and said, I want to do this, or at least come down and spend the day, and sort of had an intention, but he didn't know if we'd find it. And we're thinking maybe he'd go to other woods nearby, because he stayed in cottages, Fermynwoods, thought he might have a look around there. He went to Lyveden while he was there, and, you know, they've got the carvings in Lyveden.
Well, that's interesting, because that's what it reminded me of. Lyveden.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess they're probably already mixed like sending
Is it?
I can maybe it's complicated. I don't know.
This is my favourite trait. Depending on a number of factors.
So, what do you reckon?
Well, it's a bird of some sort, yeah.
See where.
What's it called, James?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Alcedinidae. So Joe, it's just up there.
Connections emerge.
So what do you think? What's your take on this one?
It's like a crow or something, or something out of the bird's alphabet.
Right.
Scary one.
So the title for this one is Alcedinidae, which is Latin. So it's a bit of a, it's not, I mean, I know kind of Brock's not Latin, but it was that kind of, I'm not giving it to you straight away.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of distance, but it's the literal translation. It's the, is taxonomy the right word for kingfisher?
Oh.
Which is,
Long beak.
and this one's also been donated to the park, and it's because the barn owl and the kingfisher are the sort of symbols of the park.
Kingfisher Cafe, yeah.
Jasmine, do you remember the kingfisher outside the cafe? So I was quite pleased at that suggestion, because I wanted to kind of improve it. But in the context of Kim's work, I wasn't sure about it, because it was more literal than the others. But one of the rangers told me that's not a kingfisher, and was really like put out almost like, because Denise's birds look like the birds they are, whereas this one it's definitely bird-like, but that's not what a kingfisher looks like. And also I thought we had to put it this side of the tree, just because that's where the black swan was over there.
Right.
So it kind of, do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
But it felt like this was, a lot of walkers come round this way, and this is like the dark side of the tree. Like not everybody takes this. Some people do go up around there, but most people go around there. So I like the idea that they might just not ever see it. A bit like I've never seen a kingfisher here, apart from the one outside the cafe.
You so sit on the cafe veranda and look over that lake quite often on there.
Really?
Yeah, we've seen quite a few, haven't we? Yeah, sit and have a coffee and watch them flitting about. Yeah.
Here.
its markings are quite fish-like.
Yeah,
And it's like this idea that a predator can resemble its prey, kind of thing. And I quite like the way that you think it's dappled light that's giving it, well, I thought to begin with that it was dappled light giving it that pattern, but actually it's a pattern in the glaze, isn't it? Yeah. Which is like fishy. And it, it's quite kind of, it tips into a deliberate kind of ugliness, doesn't it? It's kind of like, it's not like the grand beauty of a...
It's not majestic, is it?
Rather majestic bird. It's a bit distorted and weird and discomforting, perhaps.
So, Rona, this is the non-symmetrical one, so I think it works as a mask still. It's harder to put up.
Yeah.
Not practically, but just where
It's got Plague Doctor.
Yeah.
It's got what? Plague Doctor. The big beak.
Like those Venice masks.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then when you say it's ugly,
I think it is.
if you look at the tree, you'd say, well, if I compare that to a beech tree, which is beautiful and shiny and lovely colour, that tree, that's ugly, but then look at the bark and it's actually really beautiful. So it's about finding the hidden beauty.
What tree is this actually?
Willow?
It's like a willow to me, yeah.
It's been resident in the past, and it's really interesting. When I showed the work of the artist to the rangers, I showed them some of Johannes's, which are long videos of him with trees. Sometimes he didn't have many clothes on. Almost kind of sometimes sort of mimicking the tree, kind of being with the tree, and the duration was quite important. And didn't quite know what tree or what he'd engaged with. Spent some time at the park, and he was thinking, the willow tree is quite an impressive tree, and thought he might do something with that tree. And he said, I think I found my tree. Oh, okay. And it was this little. I don't think there's enough to call it a coppice. I don't know what the word is. Stand? Right, okay. He said, I want to work with a group of trees and a group of people. And I thought that was really nicely put. So he worked with some local people to kind of do what he does, I guess, and sort of be with the trees. And they made I don't know if I should call it a performance. They performed, but I don't really think it was a performance for when we filmed it, and there's a video you can see at the end in the cafe. I don't think the video's the work. It was like it's what it meant for the people. So I've got some feedback from one of the people that took part in it that said. A couple of points. This is after the event. I went to visit the Birches at Barnwell yesterday, which was really nice. Like as an outcome, they come back now just to see them. I sneaked in and just sat there with them for a bit. I had the feeling that they were happy that we'd been there and listened and interacted with them. Although saying that feels a bit wacky even for me. And in other words, the work has brought me closest to feeling that miraculousness. Say again. The work that has brought me closest to feeling that miraculousness is somatic work, and the more embodied I become, the more I feel I am part of nature. Of all that is, no more, no less important than anything else. It brings me a sense of being more fully alive, as if somehow becoming more human enables to be more a part of everything that is alive, and of things like rocks, which perhaps we wouldn't normally think of as being alive. And Johannes texted me the other day and he said his new work that he's working on, his working title is called Hey Old Man, It's Not All About You. So, I mean, I think some of this will probably make more sense in context of showing you the video later, but this is what I wanted to do. Did you want to say anything about Johannes?
No, I think you've done great.
Just one thing that I thought was interesting. So, Johannes was here when Danny came up to install his work, and we had a 5-minute lunch break, and they started talking. It was really interesting, and that was it, lunch over, and they never quite finished a really interesting conversation. So we're hoping that that's going to happen, and we'll release that as a podcast in the next couple of weeks. But I like the way you kind of describe, because they're both actually very, I think Johannes in mind, you call it, describing in this way, he's probably the most tree huggy of all of the artists we work with. But actually Danny's really kind of pro being in the woods as well. And I think you described them as like light and dark. I'm imagining you meant Johannes was light, but I don't know about that, but maybe.
Well, one feeds off the other, doesn't it?
So with this, we'd agreed what we were going to do, and then Danny came. I hadn't seen the print. He'd sent me one and said this would be the sort of thing that they'll be. And then he said to me, I've got this one. This looks a smiley face, and there's the initials, and there's 420, so I've got a number. And then he got this one out. But I don't know if you can quite see it, but it had a willy on it. That's a bit cheeky. I wonder how that will go down with the ranger. And they're fine. They've been brilliant. They've not really said no to anything.
Yeah.
So we put it up. Just about see it here.
Funny.
And yeah, it's great.
It's off focus now.
And then I came back. I come every so often just to check on the work, make sure it's all right. Walked around, I thought, where is that one? I can't find it anywhere. And remember I said about Mary Whitehouse visiting?
Yes, yeah.
It's gone. But I'm sure they've all got some kind of carving on. They have to. And I looked, and I don't know, but what I think has happened is somebody has come, Mary Whitehouse has come, saw it and taken offence at it, and then gone home. And then come back, possibly, like it looks like it's been sanded off. Probably you don't carry sandpaper with you. But it's been done quite carefully, so it's fine, I think, to leave that. When Danny's kind of fine with it, I'm kind of intrigued by it.
So has that's been scrubbed off the artwork, not scrubbed off the original graffiti and then printed?
So arguably the artwork's still there.
I mean, so we were thinking
it is, yeah.
Digital figure.
Yeah.
we were expecting maybe the works would be tagged. This has kind of been like untagged. But what I'm kind of intrigued by, as well as erasing the willy, that there was a little J, a little initial, and that's gone too. And I'm really interested in that. Was that the person?
Was it his willy? Yeah.
Yes, but I know it's my initial. It wasn't me.
Wasn't yours, no.
Johnny come late.
He was only an artist.
No.
But
So right then.
not really. I mean, you could not know that it had been done if you didn't.
If you didn't know what it's like before.
I mean, I'd rather people didn't just do what they like with things.
No,
but
obviously.
It's better than destroying it, throwing it in the bushes or whatever. It's some kind of caretaking. I just think it's really intriguing. I quite like that that's happened, I think.
Because they've actually followed the shape.
Yeah.
It's funny story.
I mean, bark is great. You don't want to lose any bark, you know.
Because I was sort of thinking, I was thinking about the whole where they're being placed and the graffiti thing, and how the antisocial behaviour thing, and the youths might come in and how they might react, and one might have scrumped it up just because they're at being antisocial, or it might have been because it was to do with graffiti. I suspect it's probably not, but it was interesting. Then I thought, that's interesting, because that one's been scrubbed out, and then because perhaps it's a bit too much, a bit rude. And I thought, but I bet if you were a youth, you'd find that quite funny, you know, and it might stop you from doing graffiti because you might just think it's humorous. But then someone's come and done it afterwards, so that adds another kind of layer of humour on it to me, really. It's just interesting how
Danny's okay with
people
it. I quite like that that's happened.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And just to put it into context, this is this is
the one that they didn't get to.
This is a 2,000-year-old carving near Hadrian's Wall.
Really?
You know, it's like an ancient symbol. It's not a unusual thing to see, is it?
Willies everywhere. Yeah.
For example.
Yes.
I just after that I just went home and I had to be careful what I googled.
Director gets arrested.
But found it, and apparently there's evidence to suggest that the phallus, let's say, was done at a different time to the rest of it. Almost like that was graffiti. Like some kids thought, I know, well, this would be funny. Let's go and add that.
Let's go and put one on.
So after.
Yeah, it dates back. It's like carbon dating is different for that part of the body. So that's that. So, I mean, I love this spot, and it's a lovely view. I mean, again, there's kind of carvings and turtle stickers. There was another piece of work here, but unfortunately, in the little space of Angela's, it's come missing, been taken. So it's actually just behind where you're standing. You come side. So see that's the fixing, and it's been. I think someone's scraped the one off the shoes on it, but there's a little bit of wood left in it. So I think what they've done is snap it off. So that's what. So I really love this.
Yes.
Just explain the.
That's what you're talking about, the spear. Right. Thinking of men.
Yeah, you could yeah.
So, yeah, it is a shame, but again, Danny's been really fantastic about it. So
say Maltix?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, did you introduce me to Danny as a photographer? Or I think he's comfortable with that description. So it was quite nice that this was a bit of sculptural work. He's kind of been interested in.
He's made things that he's exhibited as photograph. You know, he's photographed them and he's exhibited them as photographs. So yeah, of all of them, he was quite an unknown, and he's taken quite huge leaps really with it. Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting, like the rituals that happen in the woods. So whether it's like carving your name and things. But I know what's happened because this has happened with other artists before. They come and stay in the cottages, and he's thought, you know, I'm going travelling somewhere, staying in this remote location, thinking about ritual, and then thinks about like Wicker Man or something like that. And then talking to the rangers here, they have a lot of like greenways they cut down, and then they burn it off. So Danny's interpreted that as a ritual fire.
Yeah.
And then his proposal was, can I infiltrate your ritual fire? So he seems that he collects motorbikes that have been abandoned in East London. And so can I put the motorbike in the fire and melt it down? And I thought they would know. They said, yeah, we'll do that. So he stripped off all the parts, so it was only pure aluminium. There was nothing that was going to be toxic. So there's a big fire was made with kind of bits of hedgerow and whatever needed to be burnt down.
Where did he make the fire? Was it here?
Here, yeah, somewhere in the park. There's a designated place that they do it, and it more or less happens at a certain time every year. So it's kind of marking that. And then put these bits of motorbike in the fire, and not much happened for ages. And then it's like a split second. It just goes like Terminator when the guy goes all metallic. Yeah, and then it's quite a low flash point. So then he kind of like moved the fire away from the melted parts, and it quite quickly solidifies again. And chuck a bucket of water on it, and you can pick it up again. and there's no control over it sort of goes into the ground, and whatever's in the ground sort of make a sort of imprint. And what came out were like these arrowheads, so that was quite by chance. And then attached it to this big staff. So when he was in the woods photographing, he brought his son with him. I think he's about 12, I think. He was playing, Dad, I've got this big stick, this massive stick, and they sort of whittled it together. So like this part here, this kind of carved in, they'd sort of done that together, and then attached the axe head or whatever it is to the top. So I quite liked the blurb we came up with for this. So it said, infiltrating the annual burning ritual in the park, Danny added parts retrieved from abandoned motorbikes to the fire to reform the molten metal into an ambiguous trophy. Combined with the staff retrieved and whittled by his son was playing in the park, the work might suggest a Tuscan Gadarati stick, a weapon of the ancient world in Russell Hoban's Ridley Walker novel, or a symbol of devotion to the woods. And I've got a great photograph of him as he walked along carrying it to put it up, and it's a bit like, is it Black Rod in Parliament, you know? Anyone know what a Tuscan Gadarati stick is? So I thought you might get this when you was in Star Wars. So you know the Tuscans, and they hold it, one of them, and in the recent Boba Fett episodes, he makes one, and it's a kind of pilgrimage to a tree. And I was like, yeah, this is exactly what it was. But Angela introduced me to Ridley Walker. Do you want to explain the?
What did he say about it? What's that little bit that you read? Something in Ridley Walker.
A weapon of the ancient world.
Yes, in Ridley Walker. Because Ridley Walker is a novel written in 1980 by a guy called Russell Hoban, and it's set in Kent in about 2,000 years in the future, and probably quite soon after our times, a terrible nuclear war or accident has taken place and obliterated civilization, and the central character in the book is a 12-year-old who basically goes around in a sort of nomadic tribe, and they dig up bits of technology that have been left from what's to them an ancient past, trying to figure out what on earth it was and what it did, because there's been such incredible de-development that knowledge and technology has been lost. And the book, remarkably, is written in its own sort of futuristic, de-developed language. So I'll just read out 4 sentences in honour of the missing spear, okay? And it's some kind of thing. It ain't us, but yet it's in us. It looks out through our eye holes. Maybe you don't take no notice of it, only sometimes. Say you get woke up sudden in the middle of the night. One minute you're asleep, and the next you're on your feet with a spear in your hand. Well, it weren't you put that spear in your hand, it was that other thing what's looking out through your eye holes. It ain't you, nor it don't even know your name. It's in us, lorn and lone and sheltering how it can. And you can see how it's written. It's rather surprising.
Is American, is it, author?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting, an American author chose Kent.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of.
When we installed it, Danny said, I'm half expecting you to ring me and tell me that the stuff's been found floating in the lake, like someone's just lobbed it in there. So I'm kind of half expecting that in the summer, when the water recedes, it'll be like Excalibur coming back. So I had a quick look around just to see if it had been just chucked in the bushes or anything, and found like some beer bottles and cans of Stella. So let Danny know, and so I think that's the sort of mentality of it. I like the idea that maybe it's kind of like a libation you know, like a drink for the gods or something.
Yeah.
I think.
I wonder if it's like, you know, people take cones, don't they, home.
Yeah.
It feels like that kind
Yeah.
of memento. Somebody's
Yeah. I don't know.
proudly displaying it in their home somewhere.
Oh, but wouldn't you like to do that?
Yeah, it wasn't me.
I'm just going to say, was it you?
No one loves it because it's been
Given
at home.
that what you
Noah's-
brought home
Noah's
in the
quite,
past,
quite
yeah.
into it, but
I won't say.
I don't know. It's been suggested to me that it kind of coincided with the kids going back to the public school, that maybe it's like a, I don't know, polo mallet or jolly hockey stick or something like that. But I let Danny know. It's disappointing.
How it's written.
And he said, that is very interesting. So this is like a real positive thing. Do you happen to still have any of the items that were left there, such as the beer bottles you mentioned? If so, please could you keep all of them, as it would be a potential interesting aspect of the project. I actually used bottles filled with alcohol and flora from sites as part of the project in the woods. So it was just part of the cycle of engaging with people, so I think that's a really nice attitude. I think part of, just going back to this one, so we knew that we wanted this stuff to go here, partly to this little sort of hole in the floor. I think that's before the fence was here. This is a fishing spot, and I think that's where you can kind of put a fish in the water. So it's kind of like acknowledging that, and come up with this way of fixing it with the metal. So that was always going to go there, but it's quite phallic. So that's why that one went there next to it. So the two had a connection.
Visually, that would have sort of cut the lake in half, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You sat here looking out, and it's a shame that we don't have that experience, because I think what a beautiful location, the way it just would carve through the landscape.
Yeah, let's sort of be nice about these people that do
Yeah.
No, they've deprived us.
Yes, they have, yeah.
Well, you know, you can never underestimate the range that some people feel towards contemporary art.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
afraid.
But I mean, that's it kind of that was what we were teasing into with the kind of idea of xylophobia. So it's kind of
Come full circle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only other work to this show is the video that Johannes made, which is in the cafe. So if you want to go and get a drink and
It's not necessarily the woods, it's just that kind of, sometimes I think I probably hold myself back because I worry too much, but this has really, I think, you know, challenged me to feel the fear and do it anyway. You know, like, and I think I will, and I'll let you know. I'll go off on a walk and I'll let you know.
Just cool.
This is a picture of Sally and Tino on those steps, looking out that on off.
Yeah.
That's where it is. Yeah.